Here in the chamber, and we'll start over here with
Brad Hurst, fat, dumb, and happy.
Herb Ritter, son of Brad Hurst.
Nancy Harrington, the Harrington Art Partnership.
Bob Silver.
Tim Norvell, CMIT Solutions.
and James Cooper, of course, with the Chamber of Commerce. Online, let's have Adam.
Hi there, just getting used to unmute on Zoom. We use Teams, so thank you. Adam Taplinger with Experian. Nice to meet you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff.
Yeah, this is Jeff Nibert, City Council Member, Pleasanton.
Kim.
I am Kim Damiani, a certified financial planner at Summit Financial Group, and I'm serving on the Chamber Board as past chair.
Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie Renton, Pleasanton Adult Education. I coordinate a paid internship program for adults with disabilities, and I am the co-chair for the Chamber Ambassador Group.
Valerie.
Hi, everyone. Valerie Arkin, City Council Member.
Thank you, Becky.
Hi, Becky Dennis, a newish member to the chamber, interested in what's going on. I got to put you on mute, though. I'm getting a lot of background stuff here.
Thank you, Lauren.
Hey, folks. I work at Experian Employer Services. I work closely with Adam. Nice to meet you all.
You. Hi, Lori.
Lori Strasdis with the Clorox Company. I'm a director on the board as well.
Thank you, Kathy.
Good afternoon. Kathy Aaron, Zone 7 board member and PDA board member as well. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you, Kathy. Judy.
Hi, Judy Wheeler, looking around in the bookstore, owner of Town Center Books and PDA board member.
Nice to see you today, Judy. And Heather.
Hi, everyone. Heather Lowen. I work alongside Adam Taplinger with Experian Employer Services.
Thank you. And then Lori.
Great. Thank you, James, for going around. Lori Moffett-Felberg, Senior Vice President of Architecture at Dahlin Group. We have our headquarters here in Pleasanton. I'm also on the Chamber Board and I'm chair of the forum meetings. So with no further ado, I'm going to read real quick bios for our two guests today. We're thrilled to have them and everyone in attendance. So I'm going to start with Jeff Nibert, City Council Member, City of Pleasanton, was elected to Pleasanton City Council in November of 2022. Prior to his election, Councilmember Nibert served on the Planning Commission from April 2021 through December of 2022. As a 35-year resident of Pleasanton, Jeff earned a Bachelor of Science degree in nuclear engineering from Pennsylvania State University and a Master's of Science degree in civil engineering from the University of California. So can we say you are a rocket scientist?
I wouldn't put myself in that category just yet.
Okay, all right. Prior to his retirement, he worked at several large industrial companies throughout his distinguished career as an engineer and project manager. Jeff lives in Pleasanton with his wife, Joan, and are parents of 3 adult children and have 1 grandchild. In addition to spending time with family, he enjoys performing living history, genealogy, and traveling. He serves as a volunteer international luge racing official. That's one we haven't had before. And a member of the Sons of the American Revolution and Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. Welcome, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and read Adam's quick bio, and then we'll kick off with Jeff's presentation. Adam Taplinger helped develop and implement the Employee Retention Credit, ERC, practice at Experian Employer Services. Adam is a thought leader in both ERC and M&A related tax initiatives. He has a proven track record of driving financial success at both growth stage and established enterprises. During his career, he has managed the execution of both buy-side and sell-side acquisitions, divestitures, and joint ventures. Prior to joining Experian, Adam was EVP Corporate Development and Strategic Planning at UFIT Health Clubs. He was previously an investment banker, leading both domestic and cross-border M&A at firms such as Daiwa, Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation. He was Director of Finance at J. Crew Group. Adam attended the Stern School of Business in New York University. So welcome, Adam. Welcome, Jeff. I'm going to turn the floor over to Jeff.
Thank you very much, Lori. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the invitation from the council. So thank you to the chamber, I mean, for inviting me to this forum. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And maybe half of the folks online here I've met before or know, and the other half I don't. So greetings to those of you who I'm just meeting for the first time. I really appreciate it. I was invited to speak for a few minutes today on my vision for the city of Pleasanton, and give a little bit more about my history and background. And then I'll speak on what I have prepared for you, and then I'll take some questions at the end. And I understand I have about 15 minutes. So let me just say that as Lori mentioned, I moved here in 1987. I moved here to California from Pennsylvania in 1981, right out of college, with a job waiting for me at General Electric in San Jose. Worked there for a few years, but one week after I moved into the apartment complex in San Jose, I met the lady who was going to become my wife. So one thing led to another, and 3 years later, we were married in 1984. We got married in Alamo, as a matter of fact. That was according to my wife is Joan. So according to Joan's mom, Alamo was splitting the distance between South San Jose and Concord, where she lived. So that was a compromise, but they got married at the San Ramon Valley United Methodist Church on Danville Boulevard in Alamo. So always remember the Alamo. And in 1987, my wife, who worked for IBM, took a transfer to work for IBM. She worked in South San Jose at their manufacturing plant, and she took a transfer into marketing, was relocated to Oakland. So IBM paid to move us to Pleasanton. We chose to live in Pleasanton and are happy that we did, happy that we moved here. We've been here for 35 years now. Our three kids are now 33, 30, and my youngest just turned 23 yesterday. So really proud of all of them. Like Lori said, they're all out of the house and adults and doing well in their own right. So really proud of them. After I retired, I worked for PG&E for the last 14 years of my career. And after working there for a while, I decided to take early retirement. The opportunity came up. And so I left in late 2019, just a few months before COVID hit. So that was neither good or bad timing, depending on how you look at it. But in my free time, I decided to pursue one thing that I always had interest in before, which was serving on the Planning Commission. I had thought about applying earlier. For one reason or another, did not apply until late 2020. Early 2021, I was selected to be on the Planning Commission and served for a long time, well, a short time, I guess, compared to others who have been in the Planning Commission. And then after a while, was encouraged by some close friends that it might be a nice thing to try running for city council. And finally, after some discussion, I threw my hat in the ring and ended up being elected. And so here I am, a new member for about 2.5 months right now. So as far as the vision is concerned, when doing vision statements in various companies I've worked for, and as opposed to mission statements and positions, the vision, as it's often been explained to me, is you're looking out to a future state. How do you see yourself? How do you see the company? How do you see the city in the next number of years? And so what will it look like? And for me, Pleasanton, when I look out into the future, I see Pleasanton as a world-class city for its size. And what do I mean by that? I mean, a destination for visitors, high demand destination. I see location that's in high demand for businesses. Businesses want to locate here and be here for lots of good reasons. And residents themselves are attracted here. So residents, visitors, and businesses all view Pleasanton and the greater Tri-Valley area as a place to be, a place where they can all thrive and achieve the quality of life that they desire, and being well known. So that's kind of the vision. And so now, between now and whenever that may occur, is the task of getting there. And I'm excited about being a small part of that. As a member of the City Council in Pleasanton. I want to refer to the community survey that was done by the City of Pleasanton. I believe that was back in the fall of 2021. And lots of good information came from that. So a lot of the components of the vision are in place already, according to the results of that survey, or at least some of the baseline is established from which future results can be attained. Overall, residents are really satisfied with the quality of life in Pleasanton, city services and programs that they receive. 94% rate Pleasanton as an excellent or a good place to live, which is as high as any other in the Bay Area, and maintaining that trend. 89% call it a good or excellent place to raise children as well. And that is very, very important, not only in terms of desirability of our location, but in terms of education for our kids, looking to the future. Our kids are our future. And we're fortunate to have such a great educational system in Pleasanton, and look forward to working with the educational system, partnering with PUSD even further. 96% of residents also say they feel safe here. So that's another highlight from the community survey. Public safety and emergency preparedness emerged as probably the highest valued aspect of Pleasanton, and one that most people are really, really concerned about. Also programs that were, and as I say this, these of course are parts of the vision that I want to elaborate upon and have as part of my values as well. And I know this is shared with so many people, other members of the City Council, and as I said, so many people in city government and residents and businesses alike. Water quality, public safety, and emergency response are some of the programs that are highly valued. Ensuring basic services and protecting our environment are also highly valued. I value those immensely as well. High quality parks. Just want to give a quick mention to the success of pickleball. I live pretty close to Muirwood Park, and that's been recently installed there. The new courts, highly successful, and cricket also responding to a lot of the new residents in Pleasanton. So I envision a future where we as a City Council, as residents of the city, as a community, welcome our new residents, our new businesses, respond to their needs and desires, and provide amenities and services for them. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of the highest initiatives that the city is embarking upon now with a structured program. The council received a presentation on what's been done so far in the library services for Pleasanton, which was very, very encouraging, and we'll be continuing further with developing that DEI plan later in the year to encourage. For me, it's exciting because civic engagement by everyone in the community is so important. A lot of people really don't understand city government, or maybe don't pay as much attention to it. So I view the vision as getting as many people as possible involved in city government, or at least paying attention to city government. We need everyone from the community represented on commissions and committees, serving the city in various nonprofit agencies, in other organizations that seek to enhance the quality of life in Pleasanton, service groups, the whole gamut. And compared to 20 years ago, our population has grown and our demographic profile has changed, and I think that's for the better. We have a significantly large Asian population, and it's extremely important to have our city reflected, our city programs and services reflect the diversity of the population, and also have people who work for our city reflect the population as well. I do want to touch on a couple of items in the Chamber of Commerce's 2025 vision that I had reviewed a little while ago and discussed an earlier opportunity with some members of the chamber. A few items in there I'd like to just draw out and mention as being really important in my vision of Pleasanton as well in the future. The local economy, of course, doing what we can to strengthen our local economy, have it be viewed as a strong employment center for the whole Tri-Valley region. Again, being a desirable location for businesses to locate, be viewed by the business community as supportive and timely for business. I'd like to get out there and do lots more ribbon cutting ceremonies. I found that's one of the really enjoyable perks of being on city council is you're cutting ribbons for new businesses and welcoming them to Pleasanton and hopefully sharing their success. Another is Pleasanton being able to maximize opportunity by capitalizing on its outstanding location and access to labor and markets. And it's no doubt, no question that this is a prime location in the Bay Area for people who are looking for markets and people who are looking for labor. And I think Pleasanton is a good location for supplying and ready access to both of those items. And by that, I mean being within easy or relatively easy commute and driving distance for our workforce that comes to Pleasanton. Those that work here and those that must endure a commute from other places. I know the traffic situation is never as good as we want it to be. In fact, sometimes it can be very lousy. I know from sitting in congested traffic on 580 and 680 at the most inopportune times, how frustrating that can be. So improving our traffic situation is one important area. And I'll touch on Valley Link as being one of the solutions among several, but Valley Link is a very important program, fully supported and anticipated highly by the members of the council, by the city of Pleasanton, working with our regional partners, working as Mayor Brown did and some of the other mayors in a recent trip back to Washington, D.C. To discuss a number of items, one of which was funding for Valley Link. So things are looking very promising in that regard. So that's something that I also am looking forward to, and it's part of the vision for the future. The life sciences industry seems to be getting quite a foothold here in Pleasanton, and so that's a very exciting industry sector that I'm really excited about, and one which I think can be grown and is growing in Pleasanton. Achieving a critical mass such that it becomes a very, very important part of our economy. I had the recent pleasure of visiting the iGate laboratory. I forget the exact name of the laboratory, but out in Livermore, it's some labs that are an incubator for some new biotech businesses, and it's really exciting to see what's going on there. Tri-Valley Innovation as well is one area that I like to call out as doing some great work. I'll get to a couple of those items a little bit later. Okay,
Jeff,
how much more time do I have? I guess I'm running out.
Yeah, Jeff, actually, it'd be nice if you could kind of wrap up and give us a chance to ask you a few questions.
Okay, sure. Yeah, just a number of other items. Visit Tri-Valley, making Pleasanton the destination. I was looking at their website, very fantastic ideas there, and I'd like to see Pleasanton become really a leader in that regard. A number of the items I'm looking at on the Innovation Tri-Valley calendar, I would embrace as well. Climate Action Plan 2.0, and just also to mention, working within the budget. A lot of things are very good ideas, nice to haves, but staying within our budgeted operating expenditures, viewing things through a cost lens, prioritizing projects, maintaining adequate reserves for maintenance and ongoing operations. Those are all very important as well. So lots of ideas, but they have to be achieved in relation to the costs and effort involved to achieve them. So now I'll end there and I'll take questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Nibert. Lori, I'm going to start here in the room just to see if there's any questions here, and then I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think it's, James, if you could, because you can probably see everybody that raises their hands a little better than I can. So if you want to just field the questions through, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. Okay, we'll start here in the room. Is there any questions?
I got one.
Okay, we'll start with Ken.
Councilmember Nibert, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time today.
Sure.
I'm interested in how you feel about police oversight. We've got one of the better police departments, I think, around, and but there's always questions about that. What is your opinion or position on that, please?
Sure. I number one priority is public safety and emergency response, and our police department is very, very important part of that, obviously. The thing that concerns me a bit about when people talk about oversight is what exactly do they mean? It could mean a whole variety of different things, from something that a few other cities have implemented to an auditor or something like that. I really I want what the overarching objective is to make sure that best practices are achieved. Best practices to serve a number of purposes, but one being to avoid tragedies. Learning from experiences from other police departments around the state or around the nation. I know Pleasanton PD does a great job of being part of organizations that from which they can learn a lot and have implemented new strategies, new procedures in order to enhance public safety and prevent tragedies from occurring. So oversight, to me means establishing best practices up front, achieving and implementing measures to make sure that tragedies don't occur. I think it's the tragedies that we are concerned about primarily, not the performance of our police day to day necessarily. I think our performance of the police force is outstanding. Nothing but praise for the police force. I've talked with a number of the members of our force, very, very dedicated, engaged professionals, and very happy with their performance. So in that regard, I don't favor some of the draconian strategies implemented by another large city around us here. And would question very much the impact on our police force of implementing oversight. Wouldn't want to hamper or harm their perception of what the city's trying to do, but I do want to do whatever we can to avoid tragedies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi there. Sorry, Councilmember Nibert, thanks so much for being here. I'm Susan Hayes, and today I'm representing Bay East Association of Realtors. And I had a question for you. I'm curious about your position. What is the solution, do you believe, for affordable housing for teachers and first responders?
Well, that's a good question. As you know, we, as a council and city, just approved and submitted our housing element to the state. That housing element does call for a large number of low and very low income housing. But having said that, let me distinguish that from workforce housing. Our a lot of the professionals in the city, teachers, firefighters, police. I know our firefighters and police are very well paid. The maximum income limits based on family size to qualify for the affordable, not affordable, but low and very low income housing that's required under our housing element. That's defined as 80% of the Alameda County median income. And for a single person, that's $75,000. And I believe our teachers at Pleasanton have a starting salary of $75,000. And for a family of four, that ceiling would be 80% of $137,000. So as you can see, our professionals, our teachers, if they have a two-income family, quickly rise above that ceiling to qualify for that type of housing. Workforce housing, I see as something that is that can be achieved in partnership with other organizations somewhere, somehow to achieve housing that is deemed affordable for workforce and employees. To me, that means something below market rate. Below market rates implies that there needs to be some kind of subsidy. So where that subsidy comes from is the big question. State subsidies are few and far between these days, and I would not count on the legislature providing more subsidies. And if they did, it would be for the low and very low income housing that I previously mentioned. So it's going to have to be achieved by working in partnership with groups that desire to provide that kind of housing. And I will note that PUSD, the school district, came forward with a plan for their property when that was being discussed in the housing element to achieve workforce housing for its teachers, for its workforce. And that's something that's very much needed. That would be a start, but going from there, it would be something that would need to be achieved by working in partnership with the groups that want to achieve that. And I think as a city, we should do that, and we can do that. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope that
we have time for one more. Becky,
Okay.
you raised your hand.
Yeah, just a quick follow-on to that question. I think, as a longtime advocate of affordable housing for Pleasanton's workforce, I think I'd be curious to your thoughts on other ways other than subsidies to provide for the people that I believe are the majority of our workforce, if you look at it statistically, who do qualify for low and very low income housing. So has there been any thought to approving housing where people don't have to necessarily own a car, for instance, by improving our bicycle and pedestrian pathways? If you don't own a car, or you don't have to own two cars, you get a lot of money back in your income. That eases the burden right there. A lot of cities are doing away with parking minimums right now in order to encourage people to use alternative forms of transportation. Do you think that might assist the city in both climate-wise and housing affordability-wise and income business attractiveness-wise to provide the housing for the majority of our workforce here in the city to implement those types of measures?
Thank you, Becky, for that question. I really appreciate it. Yes, I know your involvement and you're very passionate about this, and I do appreciate that. As a community, we need that kind of involvement from our residents. All of what you mentioned is very interesting. The current housing element did take into account prioritizing locations that were close to transit, close to, for example, the BART stations, the scoring model that was used in coming up with the scores for all of the elements. The properties that made it into the element emphasized a number of those things. The part you mentioned about looking at reducing Parking minimums is an interesting topic as well. It's something I might be interested in considering and looking at when it comes time to actually approve projects. But I do want to mention that a lot of the well, probably a vast majority of the elements that are I guess the upzoned and are considered to be part of the housing element will end up being achieved through high density housing close to transit. I'm thinking of the, for example, the high density housing that's anticipated for the mall area. So hopefully the market rate units there in high density housing would hopefully be available at rents that would be possible for our workforce employees to afford and to pay by not having to own a car. That certainly does free up some available income. So I think all of those are promising areas to consider, and I'd be open to whatever else you might have to inform me about. I love learning. I want to get as much information as possible in order to make the best decisions for our residents and achieve what they want. So I know that doesn't answer everything in your question.
Not
it's a very good
expected.
question, and I don't purport to know everything, but those are some very good points, and I think all of them need to be considered in creating affordable housing for Pleasanton residents.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it. If you are available for folks to reach out to you by email, would you please post your email in the chat so that they can contact you?
Okay, sure. I will go ahead and do that.
Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you so much again for the opportunity to speak here before you. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the good questions, and good to see so many smiling faces.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Councilmember. Lori, do you want to go to the next introduction? You can take us over to Adam.
Sure, I think I did the bios. So Adam, you're up. The floor is yours. I don't know if you're going to share a presentation or just chat, but take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, and James and Chamber, appreciate the invitation, and thank you, Jeff. Actually, it was very informative. I mean, I'm about 2,500 miles away, but it's always interesting to hear everyone's take on different issues as they relate locally. And I have, I know you mentioned you have kids that are out of the house. I have 4 kids that are still in the house. So if anyone hears screaming in the background, I apologize in advance. They're not here yet. They might be soon. But I love pickleball. So I think it's great that you guys are putting in pickleball courts. So it's my favorite. But I'm terrible at it, but I enjoy playing. And so anyway, I digress. But thank you everyone for your time. I've had the privilege of working with one particular organization that's in Pleasanton, and it was then suggested that I come in and connect with you all. And I think on some questions you had with this particular topic, which we'll talk about that in a second. I'll put up a slide deck on the employee retention credit, and just really briefly before I get into that, this is really good timing for us because we as a firm are within the next few weeks going to be launching a program with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and their initiatives for businesses. So if you happen to see us, and you see us in a few weeks and say, oh, hey, I spoke to that guy and that team a couple of weeks ago, that's something that just coincidentally we happen to be doing with the chamber on a national level. So this is just great timing for us. So we appreciate it. And I'm going to share my screen. And let me know, can you all see my screen?
Yep, you're good.
Oh, great. Okay. So the employee retention credit is something, it's very topical. This is something that for the most part, if you own or operate a business, your constituents own or operate businesses, they've now heard about this, they're hearing about it, they're sometimes maybe overwhelmed with messages about it. This is something that we as Experian have been involved with and in doing for since the beginning, frankly. And so it didn't quite become ubiquitous until about a year or so ago. And in our opinion, there's a lot of interesting, I'll say, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of interesting folks and dialogues that are now in this business. And we pride ourselves in being, well, one, we're headquartered in Costa Mesa, our US headquarters. We're a large public company. We're actually, our global headquarters is in the UK, but we pride ourselves on taking a very thoughtful, diligent approach to this. And when James had reached out and asked if I could speak, I said I'd be happy to share what we know and see if there's anything we could do to help your constituents, your town, or any of the members of the chamber. So without further ado, that's me. And so Experian, you all know us as the Consumer Credit Bureau. We have about 20,000 employees. The vast majority of our business is the credit side of the house. I can't fix anyone's credit score, so I apologize in advance, but I get that question a lot. So we actually, in Experian Employer Services, are separate from the rest of the group, but we are a division of the company. So we do roll up. Employer Services, we are approximately 1,000 people, and we have about 200 people focused solely on the employee retention credit. And there's many other things that we do related to tax credits, many of which are for larger businesses or Fortune 500 clients. But specifically, the employee retention credit is not only is it topical, it's something that's applicable not only to large businesses, but to small businesses. The other service that we provide really for smaller businesses, which may apply to some of the folks that are maybe stakeholders here, would be the research and development tax credit, just based on the technology, I think DNA of the area that you're in. But I'm going to kind of skip that for now. Just talk about the ERC because it's what I'm here to talk about. So, and by the way, if anyone has any questions at all, please feel free, interrupt, put up a hand, just jump right in, right? You come in anytime, and I'll also just kind of pause for questions at the end, and maybe at one other point in the middle. So, but feel free to jump in. And so when the employee retention credit was initially passed, it was passed as part of the CARES Act. It's a stimulus program, and it was passed alongside the PPP. And everyone now is probably more familiar than they want to be with the PPP. But the PPP, for better or for worse, had its pluses and minuses. But it was passed as part of the CARES Act. ERC was passed alongside it. There was originally a prohibition on taking PPP funds and ERC funds. So the restriction for PPP from a size perspective was 500 employees and up. And so that meant that at the very beginning of ERC, a company had 500 employees. They likely had not taken, they couldn't have taken PPP. They were claiming ERC. So at the very beginning, our work in this space was really with large companies, with 5, 10, 15, 30, 50,000 employees, and performing this work for them. Now, all that changed in December of 2020 with the omnibus extension to the congressional budget, which removed the restriction on PPP and ERC. And it opened up the door for smaller companies to claim this tax refund, what it is. And the intent of this statute was that during this period of the pandemic, where there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of restrictive measures being placed on businesses by federal, city, state, county governments. The intent was to encourage employers to continue to employ folks during this time, despite the uncertainty. And it was designed to help companies with immediate cash flow. If the application of the system and the process by which this credit is claimed made this concept of immediate cash flow a little bit irrelevant, because the funds just were not coming in any timely manner. But that has changed to some extent, and this credit can still be claimed retroactively back to the period in which it was intended. And so we'll talk about that in a second. But that was the intent of the statute of the law. It was amended 3 times, and there's been about 1,000 pages of IRS guidance that have been provided over the past couple of years. And so what does this mean for a business? What does this mean for a business that looks to the chamber for guidance and says, well, why should I care about this? Why is this important to me? Or I don't really understand this. Can you help me figure this out? And so it's actually very material. And what it is at its core, it is a refund of wages paid. It's not really a refund of tax. It's a refund of wages. It comes through the payroll tax system. It does not come through the income tax system. And there's a good reason for that. But the payroll tax, or this credit, this refund, comes through the payroll tax system as a refund of wages that employers paid to employees during the pandemic period. And Congress wanted, the intent was that Congress wanted to get this not just to for-profit businesses, but also to nonprofit businesses, hence, which is why it's not an income tax refund. It's a payroll tax refund. But again, keep in mind, it's a refund of wages coming through the payroll tax system. And so the maximum amount that any company could receive for the employee retention credit is up to $26,000 per employee. The number that you maybe hear a lot when you see this advertised. We caution folks that we work with that 26,000 number is not necessarily the number that everyone receives. It's the total opportunity. But that said, it is by no means is it the average amount or even close to the average amount that folks receive. That said, the average amount that companies receive is somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000 per W-2 employee. And as you can imagine, that adds up. That adds up if you have 5, 15, 20, 30, 100 employees. And so what makes a business eligible for this credit is really one of 2 things. Number one is this easier path to understand, which is a decline in revenue. And there's certain measurements for that. And I have that up on the screen, but just for purposes of this conversation, there's some yardsticks that we measure revenue 2019 to 2020 or 2019 to 2021. We could go into that in detail, but we kind of skip over that for now. The second and more interesting path, and the reason I say it's more interesting is because of where ERC is in its life cycle. There's a lot of information about this on the internet. Like anything else on the internet, half of it's wrong, the other 40% is outdated, maybe 10% is correct. So, and even on the IRS website, if someone tries to look this up on the IRS website, it says this information is out of date for what it's worth. So what makes this interesting is this other path to eligibility for the employee retention credit is known as a partial suspension of operation or modification of business by governmental restrictive measure, COVID-related restrictive measure. And this is interpreted quite broadly and guided to quite broadly by IRS. And one of the reasons for that is one of the extensions to this to this provision of the CARES Act. One of them was actually made in early 2021, and the current administration was very favorable to this credit. They wanted to to continue this goal of full employment to the community. And they wanted to really make this something that would be more attractive to businesses, but also attainable. So when the IRS came out with guidance in 2021, it was quite favorable for claiming this credit. And there's a lot of misunderstanding we hear, and I'm going to get into that in a second on the next slide. But I'll pause here for any questions, just as kind of a natural point of pause before I get into why this is something that we hear and why we hear some of the things that we hear, which may not be accurate about the credit. So any questions so far?
Questions here? No?
Okay.
Nobody has any questions right now.
Great. So we talk to a lot of companies. We have thousands and thousands of clients. Our team works with hundreds and hundreds of new clients every month. And one of the most common things I hear from small businesses that may be looking to the chamber for guidance, they say, look, I'm just not eligible for this program. I didn't have a revenue decline, or I only had a little revenue decline. I don't meet the criteria. It's one of the biggest misconceptions of this credit, because to be eligible for this, that's one of the paths to eligibility, but it's not the only path, as we discussed. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, are leaving significant support on the table because they just don't understand how this works. And then kind of on that same note, the other folks that I hear incorrectly say they're not eligible, they say, look, my business needed to be closed completely, needed to be shut. I needed to have doors closed, nobody working. And that's just not the case. Give you kind of an easy example of a restaurant, a quick serve restaurant where there's a drive-through and there's a dining room. And what the statute says and what the guidance says specifically to this example, if the dining room was closed by governmental order, but the drive-through was open and takeout and delivery were open, that business, although revenue might not be down and the business is not completely closed, that business might be eligible for this employee retention credit program. And so that's one of hundreds of examples. Everything's case by case. It's a facts and circumstances test. So it's like baking a cake. There's a lot of layers to that. But that's one of the things that we hear quite a bit. I hear that, companies that think if they receive PPP, they're ineligible. That's just not true. It used to be true, no longer eligible. With respect to what I hear a lot from nonprofits, I had a great conversation with a nonprofit in California the other day, and we got on a call with them. We were introduced, and they said, "Look, we don't have anyone that advises us really on tax. We don't pay income tax. We're a 501c3, and as far as I know, I'm not eligible for any tax refunds." And we said, this is the part about our job that's exciting, right? And also frustrating in a way, because we love working with nonprofits. We don't have the audience to reach them in really in any mass. But what we do, we explain that, look, a nonprofit, they paid payroll taxes. They kept people employed throughout the pandemic. They continue to provide key services to the community. They provide dental and medical and mental health services to the community. And they continue to provide those services despite being restricted by the government. Their group sessions in mental health were pretty much shut down. They could only do Zoom, pretty useless. Their visitation, with respect to checking in on their community members that needed home visits, they weren't able to do that. They were prevented from doing that. And so they just didn't know. And it turns out that, they had about 50 employees, and they're looking at a cash refund of around $500,000, maybe more. And so this is $500,000 that they're going to use now to continue to serve their community members that was unavailable to them the day before. So we're just unknown to them, I should say. And so those are the top, really the top things we hear. I'm going to skip the last two, but those are the top things we hear when we hear that folks have said, hey, we're not eligible. It's worth taking a second look. And so with the ERC, and I'm not going to get too deep into this slide because it's a little bit more technical. I can go down a rabbit hole with it. But what I'll say is that for companies that are looking to claim the ERC, we often find that there's an amalgamation of work that they're trying to kind of mash together from different bits and pieces that are found on the internet. It's complex. It's complex for many reasons. And to that end, we hear either folks start looking at it and put pencils down, they just give up, or they try and just kind of mash some thoughts together and try and do it on their own. None are really recommended. Our job as a service provider, as a vendor, is to really hold everyone's hand to help deliver the best outcome that's compliant with law and also in line with IRS guidance.
Adam, just to jump in, we're getting close to the end here. We only got about 5 minutes left, so
sure.
Definitely want to leave a minute or two at the end for questions. So just want to give you a time check.
Sure. Well, then I'll skip right ahead to how the process works. The way we work, we have our planning stage where we take in information about the business, we request information. There's an analysis around controlled group of operations, but that really wants to aggregate ownership among different entities, which is important for getting this credit right. Determining what businesses are eligible, figuring out qualified wages, fancy way of saying what are folks eligible for. We do the analysis, final calculation, prepare a methodology memo, and we help our clients then, the most important part, obviously, we help them file for the claim. And so those, in a nutshell, those are the next steps. And so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there with any questions. But that is, if there's one takeaway from any of this, it's if this is something that anyone has any questions about or has kind of looked into on their own, not sure they're eligible, or maybe even claimed a portion of the credit because they thought they might only be eligible for some and not the rest of it, it's always worth digging in. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Adam. If you would unshare your screen so we can see everybody, appreciate that. Just from my perspective, Adam, I mean, there's a lot of information involved in this. So how do you make it simple for people? I mean, is there a place they can check in? I know you said there's an easy test and there's more complicated, but a lot of folks are just going to hit a wall at the very beginning. So how can you make this, how can we, the chamber, make this an easy topic for our members to consider?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as the chamber, this is a complex topic. What we do, what we try and do is we try and simplify this as part of our workflow, as part of our conversation. So when we are introduced and we speak to a new company, we take baby steps in terms of determining whether or not that business is eligible. But from a actual conversational perspective, it's very simple. On a call with any one of our team members, we can figure out within about 15 minutes if the rest of the conversation is worth their time. So while we wouldn't recommend someone else trying to go into the weeds in terms of understanding what this topic is about, we're happy to field the questions. We're happy to have that quick 15-minute conversation. If we see there's something there, we have a few more questions that we ask. But generally by the end of a 30-minute call, we have a very good sense of not only is the business eligible and how much they're eligible for.
Okay, very good. So I want to ask if anybody has any questions regarding this topic. Becky, hello.
Just a a quick question. I know when my company applied for a PPP loan, my husband has an MBA and he was going through all that. It was very complex. And I was thinking, well, if you own a food truck and you're trying to do this and you don't have an MBA, it'd be kind of hard. So is there any information that people should have readily available when they call you for that 15-minute conversation? What do you need to bring to make that a worthwhile 15 minutes and give you the information you need?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So the first thing would be quarterly financial statements. And it could just be quarterly revenue, right? Because that's one of the tests to this employee retention credit. And so once we see that, we can either on face value determine if it's eligible by itself, or then we look at the revenue as almost like a support to say, okay, revenue decline, didn't quite hit the yardsticks, but it was substantial enough where we see this material decline. So we know the right questions to ask. We'll say, okay, you were down 30% in Q2 of 2020. Well, why? Tell us the narrative. And that's so to answer this, the rest of the question, the second piece of it is, what's the narrative? What's the story? We all kind of get back in that time machine during COVID that no one wants to go back into in 2020, but to step back into it for a couple minutes, just to recall what happened to the business and how the business operations changed, to have that dialogue with the financials to support it. The financials, those are two extremely powerful tools that they could bring to the table.
Great.
Thank you, Becky. Steve, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had a question for you, Adam. If a company were to engage your firm to do the ERC work, what would you charge them?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, is that a real fish tank or is that that looks amazing. I had to ask.
I'm swimming.
That's cool. If it's a background, it's cool. And if it's a real fish tank, it's
just the background.
All right. Well, good choice. So good question. So our fees are percentage based of our calculation. It depends on the size of a company. Fortune 500 clients pay fractional percentages. And as the companies get smaller, we charge a little bit more. The workflow is the same. It really depends on the size. But that said, what we do is from a business perspective, we're extremely competitive. We're a big public company. We're in the business of treating every one of our customers fairly. And we hear some crazy numbers that are thrown out there percentage-wise that frankly just boggle my mind. But generally speaking, for smaller businesses, it's kind of in that 15% range of the amount of the credit that we calculate.
And is that an upfront payment or when the ERC money is received?
It's neither. So there's no upfront charge, no work as we go. If we bring in a project, we have a compliance team, they review it for merit. If they say, hey, look, there's nothing here, we don't see it, the company doesn't owe us anything. So that's our risk. We take the risk of, is this business eligible or not? From then the perspective of when do we get paid? IRS has a rule, it's called Circular 230. It's a prohibition on contingency fee arrangements. So effectively, when we deliver our work, we have to earn our fee, but we don't bill our clients then. So a lot of the clients don't have the wherewithal to pay at that time. So because we're a large company, we don't really need cash. We self-finance these. So we delay our billing by several months. And that allows us to help them file for the claim. Usually allows the claim to come back in terms of receipt. We can't create a true contingency because it violates IRS rule, frankly, really ticks them off. And then they like to audit people that do. So, but we charge, the amount is of what we calculate. It's a claim. The amount that we file is the amount the company will receive. So there's no review process at IRS. There's no, is this right? Oh, we filed for $500,000. The business gets 400. No, they get the amount that we claim plus interest, and we don't charge on the interest, but they get interest pegged at Fed funds, which is pretty high right now. So $500,000 claim might come back at 550. And there is a IRS right to audit for up to 5 years, depending on the quarter. and we defend our work if there is an audit, but all the claims come back paid in the amount we calculate plus interest.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions sparked by these questions? Okay. I think that brings us to the end of our questions, Adam. If you would be so kind in the chat and post your contact information and the way that anybody can follow up with you, that would be appreciated. As I've told you before, we recorded this session, so the chamber will post this on our website. And then if people watch it and they have questions about it, they'll have the ability to contact you there. So thank you very much. I think is Lori dropped off. I think she has dropped off. So thank you very much, Adam, and thank you everybody for joining us. That concludes our 2025 forum for today. Everybody be safe.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nibert's pretty unimpressive.
Where do you get the money? Where do you get the money?